For the function Naruto, your master, let's get started. So I have one quick announcement before this video starts. If you guys know the YouTuber Goku T23, how he does Goku what ifs and all those what ifs, he did the tournament of Goku. Now, I will be doing a tournament of Christian soon. Once I make a couple of more remastered Christian ones, I will be doing it. I will be doing this series in about a couple of weeks or so. So watch out for the tournament of the Naruto Christians. There might be and I might do alright, if I do alright, whatever, screw it. So let's get back to the what if. So during the entrance exam for the Genin exam, Christian is fighting Boruto. He says, "Come on, Boruto. I don't mind if you attack." When Boruto comes to attack, Christian would say, "We'll go right onto him and knee him right in the stomach. So hard that Boruto was knocked out immediately." He says, "Well, I'm not going to do anything." Christian just falls asleep, but has his sensory abilities back ready. He says, Christian is about to get his target pressed, but then he says, "Almighty push." They go, "What the?" And a giant shockwave comes sending them all back. Kakashi says, "Yo, Kakashi Sensei, you want to join me?" He says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Taking a nap." He says, "In the middle of a Genin exam?" He says, "Look, I mean, they're not going to do nothing to me. If they attack me, I already push them. Dude, I'm not actually sleeping, I'm just resting." Well, I can hear them while I say almighty push every 10 seconds they come. He says, "Aren't you going to get tired?" He says, "Nah." Basically, Christian gets a Demon Wind Shuriken thrown at him. Christian would say, "Almighty push!" with full power this time, knocking that Shuriken right back at Iwabe, about to cut him in half. Christian would appear right next to him and grab the Shuriken and say, "Academy students shouldn't have this," and breaks it in half, and he says, and Iwabe says, "My Demon Wind Shuriken!" and gets kicked in the stomach, knocking him out, saying, "I'm sorry, what now, kid?" He says, "Whatever." He leaves and goes to sit down. He goes to sit down on a rock, like Kakashi would do. He'd say, Basically, the whole Genin students would come at him, and he'd say, "Alright, y'all want to come at me? Almighty push!" pushing them all back. Then he says, "I have to count to 5. 1. Christian's getting rushed, so we have to dodge all these hits. He's dodging all of them. He's dodging so many of them. Dodge! Until finally he reaches 5 and he says, "Almighty push!" sending them all back. But then he gets sealed. He gets stuck in a paralysis seal. Boruto is about to get him and he says, going into 6-pass Sage mode, knocking them all back. And he says, then he snaps away his true seeking orbs he says, "Oh no, he's in a 6-pass Sage mode. If those true seeking orbs touch us, we're dead." Catches, "Aren't you going a little and then Christian snaps his fingers. All of the true seeking orbs go, he says, "It's not going too far. If the true seeking orbs are gone." He rushes towards all of them, knocking them out, beating them, destroying them with this purple 6-pass Sage mode, then turns out of it. He says, "That's what I call 6-pass rush." All of them laying, and he says, "Come on, raise your spirits a lot more. I want to see more out of you. Matter of fact, Konohamaru, Anko, all of the teachers, come here." They all come and say, "What do you need?" He says, "I'd like you to join the students in trying to get the bells from me." They say, "Because they're basically almost knocked out, so I'm going to need Anko to heal them. I'm going to need someone to heal them. After the students are all healed," they say, "it's going to be all of us against him, even Kakashi." Chris would say, "If you guys are having all your forces," goes into Sage mode, saying, He says, "Well, I ain't going to go into 6-pass Sage mode. Come at me, you guys." They rush at him, and he dodges all their hits, kicking and punching them back, saying, "Is this the power of all of you?" He He says, come on, Konohamaru, you too, come at me. He says, Rasen, and Christian says, Shiden! Incinerate, poofing away the Rasengan, and hitting Konohamaru, sending it back. They're all like, Konohamaru sensei! Except for Boruto and Naruto who say, big brother Konohamaru. He says, you kids need to learn how to fight. Katon, Gokakyu! All the Jonin jump in front and say, water style! Water wall! Blocking the fireball, extinguishing it. Then he says, let me all use this form that I haven't used in a while. Hybrid! He's got his left side in water, all enveloped in water, and he's got his right side all enveloped in blue fire. He puts both hands out and says, blasting all the Jonin, saying, well, this is fun. So, he says, so all the Genin even rush at him, using combo tactics. Once the timer is up, they say, no, we failed. Some of them even say, this test was rigged. And he says, all of you who think the test is rigged, leave. He says, they all say, most of the people, some of the people, he says, you all pass. And they say, what? He says, you need to do teamwork. That was the goal of this exercise. Teamwork. And you all did it. It's a good job. You're now all Genin. And he snaps his fingers and all of them get their headbands. And he says, Kakashi, I don't know where my truth seeking orbs went. He says, Christian would snap his fingers in 6 past Sage Mode and his truth seeking orbs will be back. He says, oh yeah, and he touches them. He says, hey guys, want to see something cool? They all say, yeah. And he says, ah! Turning into his hybrid dragon form and says, all the people who didn't doubt that they fail, everyone get on. The dragon is like 300 feet long. I'm kidding. It's like 300 feet long. It's like 500 feet long. Everyone jumps on. He says, flying around. He says, this is your treat for passing. Kakashi says, you guys can go to sleep on this ride if you want. All of them fall asleep, and he flies them around, going, yeah, this is fun. He says, I've never had this much fun before. He says, I need a real challenge one day. Ooh, I got a perfect idea. Chris would finally create 300 would create about 50 shadow clones. And take all the kids back to their houses. When he finally gets to the last house, which is the last 2 houses, Boruto's and Sarada's, Christian's clone would knock on the door, going, Sakura says, oh, Christian, what's up? He says, here you go. He says, what? Why is Sarada here? He says, well, you see, we did the exam and they were all exhausted, and they couldn't even stand. They actually all fell asleep, so I decided to give them a fun thing before they go to sleep. So I just gave it all to you. So here you go. Dropping off Sarada, saying, bye. Then he goes to Boruto's house and drops him. And then he heads to Naruto, into the Hokage office, saying, yo, Naruto! He says, are you? And then he sees Naruto on the ground, sitting on the ground, all tired, and he says, geez, you've been working. He says, yeah, I have. He says, ask a Shadow Clone to do it. Spend some time with your family. You need to. Maybe train your son a little. He is strong, smart, and yeah. He says, but dang, that getting exam didn't even wear me out. One day, me, you, and Sasuke have to have a battle. Me and you have to have a battle. A final battle. He says, so you and Sasuke had your final battle. And that's why you lost your arm. He says, oh yeah, and also, where's Itachi? I haven't seen him in a while. He says, actually, I haven't seen him since the war ended. He says, oh, yeah, Itachi went out. Itachi went on a journey just like Sasuke did. He says, I wonder when he's coming back. He says, someone call for me? And Christian's like, Itachi, what's up? He goes, hey. He goes, so Itachi, you want to spar? He says, I actually would like to show you something. Naruto, would you like to come? He says, sure. So when they come, when Christian would come, when they would all go, they head to a random, big but small house. It's about a little bit bigger than Naruto's. They say, whose house is this? He says, mine. And someone walks out the door. Says, eat, honey, are you there? And it's actually Izumi, because I'm going to say Izumi survived this time because I want to give Itachi a happy life. Izumi, he says, oh, who's that? He says, oh, you've never actually met Izumi before. Well, this is Izumi, yeah. This is Izumi Uchiha. Christian says, has she always been an Uchiha? He says, yes. He says, cool. Then he sees a little kid running out the door and says, whoa! He says, who's that? He says, this is... I don't even think of a name. I'm just going to call him Kazumi, though. Because, well, I use that for my Haikyuu name, but I want to use Kazumi for this one because it sounds Kazumi, Izumi, Itachuzumi. We got Kazumi. He says, this is Kazumi. He says, whoa. This guy's a wild runner. Yeah, he is. So, are you going to come to the exam to maybe... Are you going to maybe be a Genin teacher? He says, yes, I will be. He says, nice. He says, hey, Naruto, I have an idea for something fun. He says, yeah, what? Why don't you leave a shadow clone at work, and me and you relive our academy days? He says, really? What do you mean? He says, why don't we transform into random kids to maybe make up our name? Because remember, no one in the academy actually knows who your son is. So we could just say, you could just say your name is like, nah, you could maybe transform into a child, and I could transform into a kid. He says, wait a minute, there's also a problem with that. He says, what the problem? He says, your eyes. He says, freak, I have the Rinnegan. He says, can I just say that, I don't know, I have the Rinnegan. He says, I was born with it. Maybe I could just lie? He says, sure. He says, then Itachi says, that's a pretty dumb idea. He says, Christian's like, you know, I think that is kind of stupid. That is pretty stupid. He says, yeah, that pretty much is pretty stupid. I kind of don't want to do that. I want to be a Jonin instructor. So basically, when he would arrive, he'd say, the last class would be Team 7. Boruto, Uzumaki, Sarada, Uchiha, and Mitsuki. He says, and who is our junior instructor? They all feel an intense pressure. And he says, what's up, guys? It's me. I'm your Jonin instructor. They say, cool, we have the strongest. He says, Boruto says, awesome, we have the strongest instructor. He says, I'm your Jonin instructor. I can help you with all the things. What do you need to know, Boruto? Taijutsu? Sarada, Sharingan? Need help evolving it? I'm your guy, because Sasuke's never around for some reason. And Mitsuki, I really don't know a lot about you, because I kind of just I just got into the academy teaching thing yesterday. Well, 2 days ago, actually. So, let's go. He says, alright, so tell me a little about yourself. About you guys yourself. He says, I don't know a lot about you guys, actually. He says, I'm Boruto Uzumaki. I have this weird thing on my eye. I have this weird Kekkei Genkai that looks like the Byakugan, but it's not. Apparently it's not. He says, mind demonstrating what you mean by that? He says, my eye turns white, but then there's like a black spot in my eye. He says, I think I might know what this is. Christian snaps his fingers and a scroll appears in front of him. They say, how do you snap and everything appears? He says, well, instead of using blood in my thing, I just snap my fingers and the thing comes. Would you like me to see me snap a toad here? He says, nah, not right now. He says, alright. So he looks at this girl and he says, yes, there it is. It's called the Joagon. He says, the what? He says, basically, it's terrible. It's really good, actually. You can see people come. So let's try and train it up. Apparently you can see evil aura with it, right? He says, but apparently that was Sumire. So what am I supposed to do about this? He says, ooh, I have an idea. And they're like, what is this evil chakra? Then he says, turning it to something evil. They say, even everyone in the village senses this evil chakra. Naruto arrives and says, what is going on? He says, I'm trying to find out what Boruto's Kekkei Genkai is. He says, he doesn't have one. He says, yes, he does. It's called the Joagon. And it works with evil chakra. Or sometimes it'll awaken randomly. Going to his evil power. Then Naruto looks at his eye and says, Boruto, what the? And his eye is all normal, like his eye is like the Joga. He says, see? Evil chakra. Then he takes off the form. But then Boruto's eye stays. He says, what the heck? Well, that's weird. Very weird, in fact. Well, this is confusing. So, I guess something can happen. Well, that's it for the demonstration of the chakra. Whew. Dang, evil chakra does pull a toll on you. Next, you, Sarada Uchiha. He says, of course you know me as I am Sarada Uchiha. My dream is to become the Hokage. He says, another Naruto. She says, what? He says, yeah, Naruto's tried to be Hokage ever since he was 4. Ever since he was a child. He's wanted to be Hokage, so he can earn the respects of the village. Still don't know why everyone was rude to him. I mean, I had a worse childhood than him. He says, what? How could you have a worse childhood than him? Everyone in the village hated him. He says, well, at least his village didn't kick him out. He says, what? He says, I'm not even a shinobi from here. Or from the Hidden Mist village. Why do you think I was there? I was taking a vacation back to my home village. Since May is gone, Chojuro lets me come there since me and Chojuro were best friends. Chojuro actually lets me go there. Even though May is hesitant to let me go. To come back. He says, what were you kicked out for? He says, I was kicked out for almost killing the one-tailed Jinchuriki, aka the 5th Kazekage. He says, how'd you kill him? During the final round of the Chunin exams when it was me versus Gaara, I turned into this. Hurrah! He turns into a smaller version of Madatabi. They say, how could you kill him? They're all like, aw, it's adorable. He says, this is just a smaller size. This thing is huge. He says, this is what it looks like. He says, I looked like this. And and so basically, I picked up Gaara with Madatabi's claws and jumped in the air super high and slammed him down with full force, putting Gaara in the hospital for months. They all say, I never want to experience that. And he says, Christian opens his Rinnegan and says, that's why you don't get on my bad side. All of them shiver like, he says, well, I'm never going to get mad that much because you guys are my students. So, whatever. I can help you with your Sharingan, Sarada. I'll help you all. He says, awaken your Sharingan. She goes, ha! Sharingan! He says, how can we get this up to 2 Tomoe? He says, well, we'll work on that later. When you're not expecting it. You only have 1 Tomoe. There is a way to get 2 Tomoe, and you will also be able to learn Chidori, which I don't know. She says, well, you know, because he says, it's only for the... He disappears. And they're like, what? Where did he go? And Christian appears right next to Sasuke. He says, yo, Sasuke. He says, how did you get here? He says, I can teleport. So, can you teach me Chidori? He says, why didn't you just go ask Kakashi? He says, he ain't got Sharingan anymore, so he can't teach me. He only knows Purple Lightning, and I want to know Chidori, so I can teach it to your daughter later. He says, how are you going to do that? I'm just going to do what happened to you to make you get to Tomoe. He says, get Orochimaru to attack the team? She says, no! He says, whatever. Just teach me it. Sasuke just shows Chidori and Christian says, ha! Creating a Chidori. Saying, did it. He says, you are the fastest person to ever learn Chidori ever. He says, I'm the third person to learn Chidori, my guy. Your daughter's learned some sort of Chidori called Lightning Fist. Her fist turns into lightning. Still kind of mad about that because that's kind of basically my Shiden, my Purple Lightning. He said, so he teleports back. He says, alright, just learn Chidori. He says, you were there for less than 2 minutes. He says, I'm a fast learner. I have so much chakra. I have more chakra than 21st Hokages. He says, so let's go. He says, so you, Mitsuki. Let me hear some stuff from you. He says, I'm Mitsuki. My dream is to... He says, I don't really have a dream. He says, alright, we'll develop that over time. He says, we'll develop that over time. They're like, I believe it. And he says, well, I guess we can do that. We can get over your goal. Do you have any secret powers that you could tell us? I won't tell no one. He says, I do have this weird power called Sage Mode. He says, wait. Powering immediately into Sage Mode, saying, this Sage Mode? He says, no. He says, alright, hold on. And says, teleportation jutsu. It takes all 3 of them to a designated area where no one knows into the forest. Then he says, barrier! And summons a chakra barrier that no one can sense chakra. And he says, alright, you can do it. He says, why are we here? He says, I don't want people in the leaf sensing your energy, because they might think of Orochimaru energy, and people are afraid of him. So do it. He goes, ha! He says, you know, since we're in a chakra constricted area, might as well just train right now. How about we train for a little bit, guys? I want to see how strong you are, all are in your full powers. Boruto go, ha! And going into his Joagon state, he says, nice, Boruto! Looking good. Sarada go, Sharingan! He says, nice? And Mitsuki would say, Sage Mode! Mitsuki is now the strongest. With Boruto being in second and Sarada being last. Because Sarada, Sharingan, and I'm pretty sure the Jogan will be stronger than the Sharingan. Than the one Tomoe. He'd say, alright, here it goes. You ready, guys? They say, ready for what? He says, come at me. They run at him, he's dodging all the hits. He says, Sarada, you're not gonna do anything like that if you all think you're gonna do that. He says, I'll kill everyone you love if you don't get the bells. He says, they all start to sweat, and then they start trying even harder. Until Sarada, and he says, well, I guess I'll go and do it right now. He walks out, and they're like, you won't do it! Sarada will go into her Tomoe. Boruto go into his full powered Jogan state where he starts to glow blue. Mitsuki going even further behind. And Christian would snap his fingers, sending them all back, and then he says, good job! They say, huh? He says, that was a way to do that. So, basically, I learned that the Sharingan needs anger to evolve. No idea how the Jogan works. So, Sarada, you're up to Tomoe now. So, I guess you've done it. So, now actually come out with your full powers. They go, come at me like you're trying to kill me. They go, duh, duh, duh. Which would dodge all the hits, saying, you guys are good. You haven't given me this much of a challenge in a while. Ah! Fighting them like crazy. And then he says, alright guys, that's the end for this part. There's probably going to be one more part, and then I'll do another